On behalf of the University of Minnesota, I'm happy to welcome you all. I am Michael Rodriguez, Dean of the College of Education and Human Development and fifth generation Minnesotan. I was asked to do a welcome, and so I'm going to take 2 minutes and give you all a little bit of a charge. It is short-sighted to only hold schools and state agencies accountable for education outcomes. Many others play a role in securing positive education outcomes, including housing, healthcare, transportation, environment and natural resource management, economic development and employment opportunities, and so many others. Every public policy arena plays a role in securing positive education outcomes and the health and well-being of the young people in our charge. What would it look like if we held landlords accountable for school outcomes? Or if we held employers accountable for school outcomes? We are all responsible. Our prosperity is interdependent. I lead the Minnesota Youth Development Research Group, and we leverage data from the Minnesota Student Survey to elevate youth voice in decision-making. There are at least 9 school community collective impact efforts, coalitions working across Minnesota to bring schools, community organizations, business leaders, county agencies, faith-based leaders, elected officials, and others to promote access, opportunity, and improved outcomes for students, particularly those that have been historically marginalized. R.T. Ryback led one of those coalitions before coming to the Minneapolis Foundation. My group scores and reports on measures from the student survey that allow these collaboratives to monitor the academic, social, and emotional readiness and well-being of students in our schools, informing collective planning and decision. This leads to supporting workforce development, government policy development, most recently addressing school absenteeism, and ways for out-of-school time programs to meet not only the basic needs of young people with limited access to resources, but enrichment activities that provide all students for the best we have to offer. And I repeatedly say, Minnesota has a lot to offer the young people in our care. So I'm happy to welcome you this morning in a room with leaders from the business world, nonprofits, government organizations, education organizations, and donors. In full disclosure, I am a card-carrying proud member of the Board of Trustees of the Minneapolis Foundation. So welcome to you all. I suspect we can all agree that the health and well-being of our young people are critical to all of our futures. That makes us duty bearers in the lives of all children. As duty bearers, it is our responsibility to respect, protect, and fulfill the human rights of every child. All children have rights, and we see incredible outcomes when adults trust and uphold the dignity of children as members of our community. Working together in cross-sectional and integrated ways is the best way to secure a promising future. Our children deserve it. Their children deserve it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you are doing. And now I am happy to introduce my pal, R.T. Ryback. Thanks, R.T. Have fun.
Thank you. He is my pal, but he is my hero. Dr. Michael Rodriguez, more than any single person I know, is somebody who I would do absolutely anything for, and that's a very dangerous thing to say. But this is one of the great minds and the great leaders in our community. And at this moment, when states and federal governments are deciding whether we're going to really actually fund education as we should, please know that investing in people like Dr. Rodriguez is central to what we do. Now, my time is really short, so I'm going to do something very dangerous at this hour of the morning. But I'm going to ask you for about 15 seconds to be totally still and close your eyes. And a wind is blowing in one ear. And as it blows out the other ear, it's taking everything out of your brain until it is totally clear. And keeping your eyes closed, I want you to think about where you are in your life and career. And as you think about how you got there, I want you to think about one adult along that path who helped you get to where you are. And when you see the face of that adult, I want you to open your eyes. What I just did is a version of what I did in every Minneapolis high school every year for 8 years. And I did it because I felt it was incredibly important for young people to understand what it is to find a mentor, what it is as a young person to recognize that there are people there to help you. I was also there to talk about what we then called the Minneapolis Promise. Privately funded career centers in every high school, the Step Up Summer Job Program, College Possible and all the other nonprofits that do the work, the Power of You at MCTC for free 2 years of college. I talked about that because each of those programs and the scores of amazing individual nonprofits doing great work for kids were wonderful, but they were disconnected. And it took adults to navigate young people through that system. Now, you're here because you care about this issue, but I hope the most important thing you do today is to look across the table at someone else who cares about this issue, understand where they're working, and be the adults in these disconnected systems who tie together the great individual aspects and then help a young person along the way. We're doing this convening because Patrice Relaford, our vice president who leads all of our work in this, recognized that career pathways are not about one effort and they are not about one government program. They are about how we connect all of those for young people. And as you look at these efforts, you will recognize that we cannot do that by systemic change alone. Systemic change is urgently important, and you'll hear great examples today about how the government in St. Paul and Ramsey County and the schools are connecting better. That is a model to follow. But also listen for individuals who disrupt that system and make it better. Be that person. And more important, look across the table and meet one new person today so that when you lay your head on that pillow tonight and you close your eyes, you can figure out what are you going to do for that other young person along the way. I want to conclude by just telling you we're from the Minneapolis Foundation, which is a foundation that grants dollars out and helps individuals also grant dollars out in the community. I'm proud to say that in the past decade, we've gone from putting $30 million out a year to $120 million out a year. But more important, what we're really trying to do is to be not just about money, but to connect people, to connect ourselves into what we call a generous community, which means that 1 + 1 is 3. So as you think about a young person's career, and as you think about your role in that, recognize that you can make a difference, and so can the person you're going to meet today. So get to know each other better, and we're very excited you're here. Thank you so much.
Career pathways to me is really finding that spark.
It's exploratory, it's learning, it's training, it's exposing youth to as many opportunities as possible.
But it's also creating ways for them to get into these fields.
And decide where they would like to be in the future.
So they tie the classroom learning to industry learning to high wage and demand careers.
They are the new generation. We have to invest and work with them. The work is just started.
One of the reasons why we're interested in this is that we need to connect young people to high wage, high demand careers that they're passionate about.
I have always been kind of like handy. I like helping people.
Most of my work here is graphic design. It's been really fun, like creating projects where I could put Ojibwe into it.
I genuinely love to take care of people, especially my loved ones.
We have an opportunity again to expand the definition of success, but also to offer an opportunity for young people to gain tangible experience and to walk away with that confidence that comes with having built skills.
We as a community and as a system really need to do a better job of helping kids put one foot ahead of the other on the path to success.
We recognize that not everyone wants to go to school for 4 years, and that's okay.
I always tell students that this is an opportunity for you to get your foot in the door. Really, our objective is to remove any barriers that come their way.
Showing them that there's a world of opportunity allows them to find careers that are fulfilling and that are meaningful to them.
I think career pathways programs allow us to help with the next generation of young workforce.
We keep hearing from our employers, we have a lot of positions open and we don't have the people to fill them.
We're all getting older, we're aging out. We're looking for young people to take over.
All of that young voice, young talent, cultural fluency that comes into the workplace makes the rest of the organization better. We are raising the most globally fluent, culturally fluent generation ever, and we will be sitting on a gold mine if we invest in them and make sure that they help lead us into this much more complex, diverse future.
I think the opportunity for young people is to guide and be in charge of their own destiny.
I think it's like pretty cool, you know, I can leave high school and just like find like a good paying job.
Growing up, hair care wasn't a main focus in my environment. So now I want to open my own shop and I want to be an instructor.
Oh yeah, I can see myself retiring from this job. You can take care of your family. That's what it's all about for me. That's all I care about.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? My name is Keith Blassingame. I'm a senior at Volunteers of America High School, and I'm also a youth staffer with the nonprofit organization Good Trouble. Today, I'm here to tell you why youth career pathways are important for young people like myself. In addition to youth activism, civic engagement, and education, I'm also very interested in skilled trades like welding, plumbing, and mechanics. I'd also like to learn practical entrepreneurship skills and business skills. I've done work with Black Men Teach and Freedom Schools at Hopkins. These areas are exciting and motivating to me, and I wish I would have had the opportunity to earn credit through those experiences. Last semester, the high school I attended, Minneapolis Camden, offered career technical and education classes. But for students like me who might have been below in primary credits, we wouldn't be able to take those classes because they only apply to elective credits. So that would have prevented me from graduating on time. Some students want more hands-on experiences. People like my friend Pravion, he's enrolled in a respected community-based skills trades program called Urban Ventures that is held after school, but even Pravion wasn't able to earn academic credits for all the things he's learned and achieved. Many students aren't very motivated by our high school experiences. Take a look at attendance rates. Only 31% of all students at Minneapolis Camden show up, and just out of that 30% or 31%, only 16 of the African American students show up consistently. And that's a big problem, especially in my book. According to the state of Minnesota, often we don't get the chance to learn skills that directly support our career goals. Hands-on learning experiences and youth career pathways can help engage students and help them figure out what career they want later on in life. More motivated students mean more Minnesota young people in school and on track to reach our potential. I urge you to support youth career pathways, and so students like me can gain hands-on experiences and learn all the skills they need to succeed in life. Thank you.
Keith, you're a tough act to follow. Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Patrice Relaford. I'm the Vice President of Collective Impact and Giving at the Minneapolis Foundation. I also lead our K-12 education strategy and our policy and advocacy work. First, I just want to say that I'm so excited to see so many of you here today. It's a really great day. The sun, I think it started to shine just for me today because God knew we were having this event, and I'm so excited that you all made it. In the room next to you, you have people from nonprofits, local government, elected leaders. You also have obviously great young people in the room, thanks to Bridge Makers in Good Trouble. And then we also have our community of fund holders at the Minneapolis Foundation here today. Again, thank you for being here. And this is such an important issue for our region that I want to just zoom out a little bit and tell you about why we were interested in this issue as a foundation and why we think it matters for our state. As a state, Minnesota has always been an economic engine for over a century. We sit on the Mississippi and we are very innovative. We have great people here and we take advantage of our natural resources and our people resources. One of those strengths that we have as a region is that we are one of the top 10 states in terms of participation in our workforce, so our labor force participation rate. But we have not fully recovered from the pandemic. We still have a nation-leading labor force participation rate, but we're not where we were before 2019. Young people that are in high school now and our young people who are in elementary and middle school will be key to us keeping that nation-leading labor force participation rate. And we know that career pathways can help our young people to experience various careers, to gain credentials, and to participate in opportunities that will help set them up for success as they leave high school. You will see on the slides a definition of youth and career pathways, and we'll get into that later too in the panels, exactly what they are. But one of the things that I want to talk about is a little bit of my own personal experience, and then also sort of how I visually conceptualize career pathways. So just so you know, I'm here today in front of you because of various career pathways in my hometown and mentoring and the exposure that I received and the support that I received to go to college at the University of Missouri. And without that, my family, I don't come from a family where my parents went to college. They didn't know much about careers. I don't know if many of you remember the old FAFSA forms. I had to go to the library and find other people to help me fill that out because my mom was just like, here's my taxes. I don't know what to do with that. So that's the background that I come from. And I was able to navigate those various experiences. And we need to support our young people to be able to navigate college and career, the workforce, whatever they want to do. And we need to make sure they know there's no wrong door. So whatever they're interested in, how can we as adults weave together a system and support them? With that, I want to show you, I know this is a little hokey, but I love old movies. And so I'm going to show you a slide that really conceptualizes how I think about career pathways. So I don't know if you remember the old movie, The Wizard of Oz. There was a yellow brick road that she followed to get to Oz. We won't talk about all the stuff that happened in Oz. But along the way on that road, she encountered various obstacles, had various experiences, but she knew where she was going. And that's what career pathways do. They weave together activities, work experiences, and they help position young people to learn and explore various careers and leave high school with the skills that they need to succeed. So with that, I want to bring up someone who is very incredible and took the lead in Ramsey County and St. Paul in terms of weaving together various systems to have the various people, various adults focus on how they could strengthen career pathways. Ling Becker is currently the county manager for Ramsey County. But prior to that, she led the Workforce Innovation Board for Ramsey County. And in that role, she really like helped lay the groundwork for the work that you'll hear about later today on the second panel. And so I want to have her come up and we'll talk about just a little bit about like what got her into this work. And then I'll bring up the rest of the panel. So everybody, let's give a warm welcome to Ling Becker, the county manager for Ramsey County.
Yeah.
So Ling, do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
We jump into some of the work that you did?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. As was stated, I'm currently the county manager for Ramsey County, and that's a good starting point for telling you a little bit about myself. 45 years ago, last year, my parents came to the United States, and it was just myself and my sister. I was 5 years old, and I remember that because 45 years ago, I actually um, reflected on that anniversary because that was the day on that anniversary that I submitted my application to be the county manager for Ramsey County. And so that was a very significant decision for me. And the journey begins because as a young girl, first generation immigrant, my parents came with 2 suitcases and $500. And for me to have the privilege and the opportunity to lead the most diverse county in the state of Minnesota right now as the only person of color county manager in the state of Minnesota, it is a huge privilege and an honor. And it started with a career pathway. Um, thank you. Um, It started with a career pathway because when I was 15 years old, my first job was at a community center for a local municipality here in the Twin Cities. And by the time I was in high school, I was working in the city manager's office. And throughout that time, when RT gave that example, I immediately thought of the woman who was running the director of human resources at the time at that city, who just had this unfailing belief of, giving me enough opportunities in that role where I could not fail, but making the experiences I was getting incredibly relevant. And so, and everyone around that city wrapped around me, from the secretary to the city manager, saying hello, caring about what I was doing. And so I think we all don't sometimes realize how much impact we have on interns and young people who come into our organization. So I would just say, please take interest in all of them. In terms of my own journey currently, I do lead Ramsey County. We are a large, complex organization of 4,000 employees. We have the most diverse board right now in the state of Minnesota, which we're also very proud of. And we do everything from running your 911 call center to running our adult detention center to doing all the elections, to doing all the vital birth records, to doing roads, so really pretty much everything that you look around, we have some voice in. Why that's important is, as we talk about these career pathways, and I'll be excited to share more, is people belong in families, and students come from families, and they live in families, and we have to make sure that those systems are working for all of it, so that they can be successful. So hopefully that's helpful.
That was very
Yeah.
helpful. And you talked about how students exist in families and how we have to make systems successful. One of the reasons that we wanted to chat with you today is about all the systems that you helped to weave together. Specifically, a few years ago, you applied for a Department of Labor grant that was focused on building youth career pathway systems. Would you reflect a little on that and how it led to the work that's happening today?
Yeah, sure. So, we're all fortunate enough to have really robust communities where there's lots of people doing good work. I think one of the biggest challenges that we find is that everybody's doing their good work in their own silos, and sometimes we're not always talking to each other. So we had this opportunity to participate through this Department of Labor Youth Systems Building Academy with, I believe, like 10 or a dozen other organizations or kind of basically governments around the country. And we were able to bring together St. Paul Public Schools, St. Paul College, our city, and our county to continue to actually deepen the work that we were already doing. So really, in many ways, the Department of Labor systems building work was not necessarily the catalyst to bringing us together. It sort of propelled us into chapter 2, because what really started the work deeply was the relief funding and our ability to kind of respond around the pandemic. So some of you might remember, counties and cities received a direct allocation of CARES Act funding. And then, like a year and a half later, we received this American Rescue Plan Act funding. So through thinking through a lot of that funding, we all knew we didn't want the system to be the same as it was once like the pandemic and the money was gone. And so we really used that money to catalyze sort of a different ecosystem. And so that journey through the Department of Labor sort of built out the chapter 2, I think, of a lot of that work that we were doing.
Great. And I want to take a break and invite B. Kyle from the St. Paul Chamber of Commerce, R.T. Ryback from the Minneapolis Foundation, and Karita Green from the St. Paul Public Schools to join us on stage for the rest of the panel. I'm going to transition though to ask Ling another question about her work, but you all feel free to come up now and take a seat. So building on that, Ling, why was it important for you as a county leader to bring together so many partners? So you all have the school district, other partners in the workforce. Why was that important for you to weave all of that together?
It was important because the needs were great. I appreciated all that you said at the very beginning about what a vibrant community Minnesota is. But the other piece of that story is we have the greatest economic disparities by race anywhere in the country. And so while we have a lot of assets, obviously many of them, especially the people side and especially our diverse young people, are the underinvested and untapped assets in our community. And I think the real motivation is I'm a big believer in collective impact. I think we do a lot when we talk about our own annual reports and our own goals and missions and things that we do. But ultimately, like I said, we're working with complex families that touch a variety of systems and organizations, families that are in St. Paul Public Schools and are, working at businesses that are connected with the chamber. They're all Ramsey County residents, and they might be in different parts of our county systems and need things from the county. And so because of that, and also there's a lack of funding in the workforce ecosystem, and it's very bifurcated. I saw in the foundation's handout for you that the public funding is the number one way that workforce is funded. Well, that's true, and it's also a place where everybody's trying to bite off the same piece of cheese and fighting, for a very limited amount of resources. So one of the things that we continually try to do in our ecosystem is to incentivize people to stop thinking that way and to think about what you want to do more of and what you should be doing less of. I often describe the workforce system as running like a 400-yard dash, where most organizations in our community think they have to be at the start and they're going to run that race all the way to the end. And I always say, well, where can you hand off the baton? And so we've been trying to do a lot of that in Ramsey County. When I was the workforce director, if people would come and bring new ideas and funding ideas, it would be rare for me to say, well, who else is doing that in your ecosystem? How else are you bringing a partnership forward? Because we're not interested in necessarily funding the soup to nuts model anymore. And so that's a really big part of it. I think as a county, when you do collective impact, there needs to be a backbone organization most of the time. And governments, oftentimes the workforce boards can oftentimes be that backbone institution.
Thank you, Ling. I wanted to turn our attention to B. Kyle from the Chamber. For businesses in the Chamber, why are youth career pathways a critical workforce development strategy for our region? And what do you think is the business community's role?
Well, first of all, thanks for letting me be a part of this, and good morning. I would say this we talk about 45 years ago. 45 years ago, I was graduating from high school.
Show off.
Right? And I went to Woodbury High School back when there were 150 kids in the school, and it was a small town. And I got to go to a college day at the Minneapolis Convention Center, and I picked a college. Through the chamber, my desire has been, let's get kids introduced to possibilities for careers to better inform where they want to go to school after high school, which is where we really leaned in. And I'm going to dovetail what you said, Ling, about this idea about being additive as opposed to competitive. We have a tagline that says we create connections that count. And I think it is ever so critical. And that's been real learning for me, that we don't need to create something. What we can do is amplify something. And if we have the role of, we have the opportunity really to be in this place of connection and intersection between whether it's business and government, education and business, we get to play a role that doesn't require us to build a whole new thing. We can promote this amazing work already underway. Because as it relates to business, clearly there's extraordinary self-interest to introduce the next generation of leaders to something that maybe my mom doesn't do, or my friend's mom doesn't do, or my teacher doesn't know about. So it's critically important because, very simply put, you can't be what you can't see. And when I was 18, I thought I was going to be an executive assistant or a salesperson for the phone company. Those were like what I thought were possibilities because that's what my parents did. And there's so many more things out there than what I was open to. So critically, at the ground, it's introducing folks to possibility.
Thank you. With that, I want to turn our attention to Karita Green from St. Paul Public Schools. One of the findings from the report is that the strongest career pathways involve school districts and higher ed partners. Would you talk a little bit about the role of school districts in creating strong career pathways and then also in effective partnerships with higher ed, which includes 2 and 4-year schools?
For sure. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. For the record, I am born and raised in Minneapolis and now over with St. Paul Public Schools and just enjoying my experience over there. So one of the first things when I started my role as a career pathways and college coordinator for St. Paul Public Schools, I went to a conference from Jobs for the Future. And there are all these different things. And some of the folks here were there with me. It was like 3 weeks on the job. And my team over there says, you got to go to this. I'm like, okay. Went to Boston, right? 3 weeks on the job. And I learned this phrase, which you all may have heard. It's called the big blur.
Big blur.
And I was like, the big blur? Like, what is that? And what I learned was it is pulling all of these resources together. It's intentional way to pull all of the resources together so the students can actually go through the system, be supported, get what they need, and not have to be concerned with, I got to talk to someone at the county, or I need to connect with the school district, or I got to talk to my college rep person. It's blurring all of that for the students so the students can go through so we don't have to figure out how to navigate our school system. So I was just fascinated. And for me, that helped me understand how to support my team, how to support the work. I have a background in being a high school counselor, so I'm very familiar with PSEO and figuring out credits and credits for graduation and all of that. And so that was very informative for me. So the role of the schools, so for St. Paul Public Schools, we have a robust pathways program, which you'll hear more about that a little bit later. But we touch on 4 career fields, and then within those fields, our schools are actually required to offer courses in those fields. So anyone who is familiar with K-12, the students sign up for class, and like maybe if you don't get enough enrollment, it's like, well, we won't offer that class. Nope. We have to offer the classes that are in this career field. And also we have a robust school counselors and work-based learning coordinators in our buildings that actually help support the work as well. And so St. Paul Public Schools has invested a lot in that. We also have an 8/2 model, which allows all of our schools to be able to, we have 7 comprehensive high schools. So if students want to go to a PSO or a different program at St. Paul College or somewhere else, the schedule works for that because they can go to their classes in their building in the morning and then in the afternoon take a college course or whatnot on a regular schedule. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to turn my attention to the fellow on the end, my boss. I don't know if you all know this, but he's very interested in career pathways for young people. And for years, we've talked about, okay, what are we going to do in this space? How are we going to enter this space? And so from the report, and as we mentioned earlier, public funding is the primary source of support for career pathways programs, but philanthropy can also play a role. And so, RT, I wanted you to talk a little bit about what role you think we in the philanthropic sector can have in this space.
I think it's important to differentiate between a system and an ecosystem. School district is a system. Education in Minnesota is an ecosystem because all education is local. Counties are different. Nonprofits are part of the ecosystem. The reason I stop there is the fact of the matter is you can't really move the dial without working the whole ecosystem. However, when you look at how much money is available for others, philanthropic money is completely dwarfed by the amount of money that the public sector has. So you can't philanthropy away this issue. So the challenge gets to be, how do we keep government at the table at a moment where there are massive cuts to every single thing we care about in this room? How do we keep government at all levels at the table? And then how do we really unify that together? And often I've talked about government as a gas station, philanthropy as Jiffy Lube, meaning you go to the gas station regularly, you go to Jiffy Lube every once in a while to make it work better. So if philanthropy can play that role of connective tissue, the mortar between the bricks, it can work extremely well. What that does mean, however, is that individuals, especially people who are on boards of directors, should stop always talking about mission creep, stay to the task, and ask one question in addition to what they're doing. What don't we do? And when you say, what don't we do, it doesn't mean you should do it. You should figure out the partner who can do it. And sometimes you should say, 3 of us are doing pretty much the same thing. Here's a radical idea. Why don't we merge? I mean, B. Kyle's trying to merge the Minneapolis and St. Paul chambers. That's hard as hell. It is not as hard as 3 people who work on youth pathways saying, let's work together.
Thank you, RT. For B, what role do you see the business community potentially having in the youth career pathway space in the future? And is there anything that you've heard of from other regions that our region could learn from?
Well, that's such a good question. When I talk to business leaders, there's unequivocal recognition of the importance of investing in youth and career exploration and exposure. I would say the business community is like, what do I do? You talk about an ecosystem, how do I boil the ocean? I'm one person who needs 2 people, and how do I navigate that? So I would submit the challenge for business is to figure out how to navigate the ecosystem and find a way to plug in for their specific needs. Number one, that's a challenge. And then how to contribute to the bigger picture. And that's where we're really intentionally leaning in. As a chamber, again, if we get to be at that crossroads between business and philanthropy and government, how can we be that I love that word, that connective tissue to bring folks together. Business has self-interest in bringing in next generation leaders. There are great models nationally, internationally, with whether it's OJT and internships and apprenticeships to get students connected. And so I would say business is hugely invested. The question is, I'm not quite sure how I plug in, like what's the ask? because each of us is hesitant to volunteer for anything if what we think that volunteering means is way more than you have time for. So my job is to try to navigate the need and the opportunity and make it accessible to folks who are really interested and really don't have any experience in how to do that. And we're also learning from the school district. Our partnership with the St. Paul Public Schools has just been extraordinary. I have just been so impressed by the professionals there. And they're saying, oh, finally, someone will talk to us. Like, can we work together? Because the schools are very invested in this as well, because they understand experience and exposure just opens the minds of students to possibilities. We get to do that. So we're finding that our success in any way our organization is doing our work is through connections with experts who already are doing the work. We don't need to invent it. And then we connect it to the folks who need that because they're interested as well. So there you go.
Thank you. For Karita, in terms of thinking about the school district, youth career pathways aren't separate from academic goals for your district. Would you talk a little bit about how these programs are part of the district's approach to advancing equity and academic outcomes for students, and also just a little bit more about like why that's important for the district?
Sure. Thank you. So I did mention that our Pathways program is in all of our high schools, and so that's equitable, and that we have a requirement for certain classes to be covered. Also, the Pathways program that we have, like we have a very close connection with Min State. So we had an opportunity it was grant funded through 3M, and it was about $1 million that we got a year for 3 years. And we had an opportunity to create some pathway programming on the campus of St. Paul College. I saw President Peasley here somewhere. And it was a partnership with St. Paul College and also Century College and St. Kate's. And I know I'm going to miss a few, but a lot of different colleges. And the opportunity that was given that we were able to provide, one example is offering an EMT class. So our St. Paul Fire Department, and we offered an EMT class. And so students went through that class and they are certified EMT. And I just heard yesterday one young person is gone off to college, and what she's doing is working as an EMT. She wants to become a doctor.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, but because of the funding, we were able to explore that area. And one other thing I wanted to point out for the gentleman, and he isn't sitting here anymore, but CTE in Minnesota or in St. Paul is a required course for graduation. So it does count towards your academics.
That's great. Thank you. For RT, when you were mayor and you helped launch Step Up, the youth employment program in Minneapolis, from your experience, what are the challenges to this type of programming in terms of the focus and the effort? And what do we need to do to weave together those experiences with partners and overcome some of those challenges?
Well, this goes back a bit to that earlier point about government as a gas station, philanthropy as Jiffy Lube, because the first question is money. So that was a partnership. Step Up, when we started it, it was a partnership between the city and the county and the Chamber of Commerce. Todd Klingel was there who did that, and Richard Davis, the CEO of U.S. Banks. We had all these good partners together, but the money mattered. And it was really based on federal and state dollars that flow into communities that were disconnected. So we built it on the back of public funding, but then went out to businesses and sold a value proposition. We didn't say, feel bad for these kids. We said, much as I said on that video, we're raising this incredibly diverse generation that's going to improve every one of your businesses' ability to compete in a global economy. And they stepped up and they put money in. And so that helped with that. So the dollars were one big issue. Sustainability, I think, is something else in this, is that we see these things flash up and down. Jeremiah Brown, who leads Step Up. How many years has Step Up been going? 23? How many young people have been put through that program? How much? 34,000. Okay. So over 23 years, 34,000 kids have gone. That's because there's been persistence and advocates up and down the system, and we need to continue to do that. However, if you look at Connect, which was an effort that we incubated at the Minneapolis Foundation, an alumni association for young people from all of these different programs, which we thought would really take off and employers would grab, is honestly really floundering. And that's deeply disappointing to me because it's almost like a production line. You're producing all of this talent, and Connect was supposed to be the way to get it to market. And when we went out to the private sector, we just didn't get that response. So I think it's great to start new programs, but I really think the idea of doubling down where it's really working and then thinking of connective tissues is a big piece of that.
Thank you. For our closing, I want to turn it back to Ling. You built a lot of infrastructure in Ramsey County and St. Paul, as evidenced by the panel today. And I know a lot of people asked us, why are you guys focusing so much on Ramsey County? First, learning doesn't stop at the river. We're a dynamic region. And we can learn from people everywhere, even people from the suburbs. We can learn from them too. And second, what they're doing in terms of weaving together these systems, we just heard over and over again as we were doing the report that you have the executive summary from. Talk to the people in St. Paul, which we were going to do. And Ling's name came up so many times. So that is why we wanted to focus today and give you some examples from Ramsey County and St. Paul. But Ling, you built up quite a bit in Ramsey County and St. Paul. Would you talk about the challenges with keeping efforts like this going and keeping all of the partners engaged? And then, do you have any concerns given some of what's happening in terms of the federal funding landscape and then also even shifts with resources in Minnesota?
Yeah, those are big questions, but I'll break them apart. In terms of maintaining the connective tissue, I love that you use that word because that's been a big phrase I've used over these last 5 years. I think the ARPA money and the CARES money, that's what that was for government at that moment. It was the flexible funding that allowed us to be connective tissue. And that's going to be the gap as that money expires. So for philanthropy, that's a really good opportunity to think about what were the things that we built as pillars of connective tissue that should stay, and we need help in sustaining that. In terms of long-term alignment, I think it's up and down that system and in the ecosystem, up and down and across. I will say it's really important to have your leaders at the highest level committed to this work. And we have to manage through leadership transitions. I will say, I really appreciate the call to Dr. Peasley. She should probably be up here with us. Thank you for all your work. Her and I have been thought partners along the way. Dr. Joe Gothard is no longer here, but he was a thought partner. Now we have Dr. Stanley. So we have to, Dr. Stanley's new in her role. I've evolved out of my role. You're going to hear from our new workforce director. These are challenges in an ecosystem because this was never about me. It's about the whole ecosystem. So we have to be able to build that. Dr. Gothard's back in Milwaukee, right? So we all have to think about how to make this work. But then it's also the staff. We have staff that work really hard every day. And we got to the point when we were executing against some of our new programs. The city of St. Paul, school district, county staff, we had a weekly team meeting. We are not on the same team, but we decided we all work for the students of St. Paul. And we no longer cared who got credit, and it was the collective impact that mattered. We never got to the point of having shared space or doing some of that, but that should be the next iteration of conversation. We actually all work in alignment, and we should be, rubbing shoulders, maybe even more so than with other teams that we work with in our own buildings, because the work isn't as aligned as even working across organizations. I will say the resource constraints that are coming and have come is a big reason why people retreat out of partnerships. And we have to really shield from that. At the county, we are very cognizant of 3 factors that are going to impact, and you're all going to feel it: the federal orders, the federal budget, and the state budget. All those are going to put in tremendous constraints on public sector funding. I like to talk about it in 3 buckets. Direct impact, we are seeing as government literally money being stopped, saying stop work. That's going to impact things that counties and governments can do. There's indirect impact, which is resources that are going to other entities in the state of Minnesota. You're seeing bridges get unfunded, things. Why does that matter to all you? Those are jobs. Those are businesses. Those are career pathway internships, right? So that's some indirect impact. Our nonprofits are losing externships, AmeriCorps. All of that is part of the equation. I've gotten plenty of calls on that. And then I also talk about the collateral impacts. We lose federal staff at a national level, it impacts the way we do work as a county. So you think about you lose staff at VA. We are not able to process veteran benefits the same way. And those veteran households have kids who are trying to make it through all the work that this group is trying to do, right? So families are all interconnected. The work is all interconnected. Data is being taken off federal portals. Those things have collateral impacts on our grant making, the work that we do, how we understand disparities. I saw something come through my email. Maternal health disparities do not exist if we exclude Black women. What? You know, it just, how do we have that data not exist, right? And then the last thing is just the harm on public sector and the trauma on our communities. And I'll say, Ramsey County, I would be remiss not to say this in a career pathway room. We are an organization of 4,000 people. In a little square block of Ramsey County, the city of St. Paul employs 4,000 employees. The Met Council employs 4,000 employees. We are a huge employer with lots of workforce, and we should be part of the career pathway equation too. That doesn't include the state. So that's a whole industry. And if we actually want people to look like the communities that we're going to serve, we have to do that better too. And so those are real challenges, but I will just leave you with one last point. I think the biggest thing to our benefit over, at least in St. Paul and Ramsey County, we have 2 things. One, we care about local connections. And I think you want to be in an ecosystem that is big enough that you can do just about anything and you can take on any challenge, but you're small enough that I can pick up the phone and others can pick up the phone and we can get to somebody and we can make things happen because we know each other and we trust each other. And so leaders need to trust each other and not worry about, their stuff. I always tell my teams now, hold your stuff loosely in this day and age. The work does not belong to you. The work belongs to the people. So that's a really important one. And then I see some young people in the room. I see some of our partners that support young people. That is our most critical asset, is our young people. We have the most amazing untapped talent of young people in this community. We can do anything. The state of Minnesota cannot actually be successful in all of their disparity work, all the things that we say are so important to the state, unless we get it right in our urban core. And that, and so we are a big part of that. And so we need to keep believing in that young person, I never thought I would be a county manager of the most diverse county in the state of Minnesota when my parents would have never told you that. They weren't even citizens of the United States. What other young people are out there that should be the next me and the next you and the next president or whatever, right? So let's not give up on those, on the hope of what we can do together.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. If you have questions for the panel, we're going to do one Q&A after this. There's a QR code, and we'll do a Q&A later. I want to thank Ling, Karita, B. Kyle, and RT. I want to just give them a round of applause and thank them for doing this panel. Ling has to leave, but her colleague will answer questions during the Q&A from the panel. So thank you especially, Ling, for joining us. I know you're so busy. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
I genuinely love to take care of people, especially my loved ones. Just having these skills to, save a life is amazing, it's very priceless. Hi, my name is Julius. I'm a senior at St. Paul Central High School.
One of the things that is unique about us is the fact that we have the city, the county, the school district, the college, the chamber, all working together for a common goal, which is building up our future workforce.
Their collaboration stood out to us at the Minneapolis Foundation because you have adults working across sectors, across services and jurisdictions to ensure that young people have access to opportunities in a way that's seamless and for young people where there's no wrong door.
Not many high school students will be able to experience like doing CPR to a mannequin in class or giving them proper ventilations through a BVM. I think it's like pretty cool, you know, I can leave high school and just like find like a good paying job.
I think the biggest thing for us is providing the citizens of St. Paul like an avenue to better help their community. So getting students from the city who are like from here, who've grown up here, is kind of paramount for our department.
I think oftentimes when we're sitting in a classroom as a student, you're not really always sure why you're learning the content that you are. But I think that when you can tie it to a career, there's just a new opportunity for students to feel more connected to their work.
I feel like the program has helped me by getting some experience on working here and like building a foundation for like later in the future. My name's Chai Ying and I'm a senior at Johnson High School and I work for Hansa Binder.
A lot of the people here in our shop and then around the cities, we're all getting older, we're aging out, and there aren't that many young people coming into the industry. So having people come in from high school is great. You know, we're looking for young people to take over, to, you know, be the next generation to step up.
We keep hearing from our employers, we have a lot of positions open and we don't have the people to fill them. Well, we're in the schools, we have the folks to fill them, we have the youth, but we have to prepare the students. So really there's a variety of experiences. Our internships are very flexible. And our career pathways are flexible.
I think that a lot of our students, when they're coming out of internship or they're coming out of successfully taking a college class, they're sort of growing in their own confidence and potentially knowing that they can do whatever is next for them.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Good morning. My name is Kenneth Avon and I am with MKE Consulting Group. I had the privilege of supporting Patrice and the Minneapolis Foundation in developing the report, which the executive summary is on your table in front of you today. And I am really excited to get the opportunity to moderate this panel. I won't be as funny as Patrice, mainly because she said I can't be. So I will focus on the questions, and I'm excited to really focus on, you know, Patrice earlier referenced the Yellow Brick Road to the Emerald City and the Wizard of Oz. And I'm excited to have this conversation today because these folks are the folks that were responsible for laying those bricks in Ramsey County. And I'm really excited to talk about, like, how do we get there? How do we build these pathways? How do we create the connective tissue across systems to ensure that our young people are able to access careers that are fulfilling, that they're passionate about, that are high wage and high demand, and that our state needs them to. So with that, I'm excited to have Hannah Chan and Dr. Bree Galuska from St. Paul Public Schools. Hannah is the Career Pathways Coordinator at St. Paul Public Schools, and Dr. Bree Galuska is a Partnership Specialist with St. Paul Public Schools. Also excited to have Catrice O'Neill, who's the Director of Ramsey County Workforce Solutions at Ramsey County and was formerly over at Brooklink. So we have both sides of the river with her perspective represented here today. And then we have Nardos Tesfalidet, who is the Right Track Supervisor over at with the City of St. Paul. So excited for this conversation today. And I am going to kick it off with you, Hannah. Can you just give us an overview specifically of one program, the St. Paul Public Schools Spring Internship Program, and how that connects to the broader work that you all are doing with Career Pathways?
Thanks, Kenneth. Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to begin actually with the broader work that's happening with Career Pathways. So we actually start with students exploring careers as early as pre-K. So students have personal learning plans and they start looking at their interests, skills, what they're interested in pre-K. And then this work continues in elementary, middle school, and when they get to high school, we have foundational courses, we have advanced courses that students can take in high wage and in-demand programs. And that's how the work starts. We have 4 career pathways. We have science and medical, we have human services, business and communications, and innovative and emerging technologies. So that's a broader overview. And then I wanted to share 2 programs that we started to support the career pathways. So if you remember back in 2020, we had the global pandemic. And during that time, we realized it was a good time to be innovative and to reimagine what we think how students would learn best and how we serve our students. So then we created 2 programs that I think really moved our career pathways work forward. Our first program was Earn as You Learn. So that was a way for students to learn about building financial wealth. They also explored careers through certifications. So remember, we were in lockdown, so all of these programs were asynchronous. So students were able to explore careers through certifications like OSHA. So in OSHA, you can do agriculture, automotive, you can do manufacturing, EMS, you could do culinary, cosmetology, construction, manufacturing, all of those options. Imagine exploring careers and earning certifications at the same time. So we offered that. We also offered Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel. Students also worked on customer service and sales. We also had, last year we had a student complete their FAA. That's the Federal Aviation Administration, to fly small unmanned planes, which are actually drones. So now we have a 16-year-old that can fly drones. But through certifications, these students are exploring options and career pathways. So we started this during COVID. To date, we have over 2,000 certifications earned. And a lot of it students are doing on their own time. So
Let's applaud that. That's amazing. That's incredible.
thank you, Kenneth. And so the second program we started was the spring internships. So I know that's something we want to hear about. Again, we were thinking, okay, students are learning these classes, this content in the classrooms. How do we take that learning and make it more tangible? How do we connect it to the workplace? And so I see Shayna's in here. So Shayna and I were connecting. She used to be with Right Track, the Right Track supervisor. And we were talking about how do we do this? And she had some funding, and we have the students. So we decided together, let's do it. Let's start the spring internship program. And that's how partnerships work, just having the conversation, realizing how we can work together. And so our first year, we had 43 internships. They were hybrid or virtual because it was the middle of the pandemic. And then we had 18 employers that first year. And what was amazing is one of our students, she actually worked for a national company, and she did all their translation of their website into Spanish. So she graduates from college this year, and she still works for that company. She is a consultant. They hired her as a consultant after the internship. And that's what we're talking about, giving these students these networking opportunities so they can be out there and having our employers see how amazing our students are, how much talent there is. And that's what we're doing. So our spring internships, what are they? So essentially they run during the school year. We work with Right Track very closely. Students apply in October. And then in November, December, they interview and they look for, they can get different opportunities. Internships are between 80 to 100 of hours paid. I think it's so important that we pay our students. We all work, we get paid to work. Why wouldn't we pay our students? So it's a paid internship, 80 to 100 hours. You saw Shai in the video, learning, he's working in a manufacturing company. And it's important for students to do that. And then meanwhile, we have work-based learning coordinators in our schools. We cannot do it without our work-based learning coordinators. They support the resume writing, they do mock interviews, we do career visits, job shadowing. So they provide all of the support in the schools. And along with Right Track comes in as well, and they recruit students together. They work on the applications together. They work on the hiring paperwork together. And that's how we collaborate and really work together to make sure students have these opportunities. The other opportunity students have in St. Paul Public Schools is that we have district-wide career pathway programs. So students can actually take other courses. They can earn college credits with our partners. They also can earn their EMT. They can earn their CNA certifications. For auto, we have the Automotive Service Excellence certifications. So just a lot of opportunities. I think what our career pathways do is really bring education and employment together. So students really see, and it really helps their future. I could talk all day, I'm not going to, but I just have so many stories of students saying, I had to work like with these professionals. We had to work on a real problem. And just think about the communication skills, think about everything they learned during these experiences. So I hope I didn't say too much.
No, that's great. And thank you for giving us that foundational understanding of what the expansive work that you all do over in St. Paul Public Schools. So, Bree, I want to pass it to you. I'm interested in understanding like what problems and challenges did you all have to solve in order to provide the spring internship opportunity for students, and how are partners critical in addressing those challenges?
Thank you. I think that the first panel actually did a really nice job of highlighting some of the challenges that we faced as a team. The two biggest ones are always the financial challenge, right? Funding, and then systems alignment. So I'm going to break those down into two separate sections. So the first one obviously is funding. We're always seeking sustainable funding. As we talked about, we are working together. So we're applying for joint grants. We are braiding our own funds. We are really seeing our budget sort of as collaborative opportunities and not sort of competing against one another. And we're still continuing to do that. One of the things that we really want for our students and families in St. Paul Public Schools is to be able to rely on consistent programming. And so in order to do that, we are always seeking a sustainable funding source for these types of programs. The other piece is obviously the program alignment. Ling said it really well when she said these are really complex systems. We're talking about big organizations that all have their own policies, protocols, and we're asking to work together. And so we really needed to step back and sort of join this one St. Paul, one Ramsey County. One of the things that we did as a team specific to the internship is alignment of language for young folks. So Right Track has been along for a while. And so our young folks in St. Paul Public Schools were very familiar with the terminology of YJ1, Youth Jobs 1, YJ2. So this year we made the change to, in our spring internship program, mirror that of the Right Track language of Youth Jobs 1 to Youth Jobs 2. And so we as the educators, as the adults, we can make that change. And that making that change is allowing that program to become more accessible and more easily understood for the young folks that we serve. So those are sort of tweaks that we make that seem like a pretty minor change, but it really impacts the youth that are applying for our spring internship program and then hopefully seamlessly then transitioning into the summer Right Track program with just some of those language changes.
Thank you, Bree. I'm going to jump to you, Nardos, and I'm interested in learning, a little bit more. We've heard the reference here a couple times, but what is the role that the City of St. Paul plays in executing the spring internship program? And how does the partnership with St. Paul Public Schools strengthen other employment efforts within the City of St. Paul?
Yeah, can you all hear me? Okay. Thank you for having us here. This work that we're doing with St. Paul Public Schools is a true collaboration between SPPS and Right Track. Bree and Hannah already mentioned, we're utilizing shared language. We're utilizing that Right Track program model, right? Young people are already familiar with this model. We want to make it as easy as possible for a young person to be able to navigate these pieces without worrying, wait, I'm 16, am I eligible? Wait, I live 2 blocks outside of city limits, am I eligible? So something we were able to do is blend a lot of our funding and braid it. That way all young folks are able to seamlessly enroll in the program. And then on the back end, it's our responsibility to figure out how is this young person eligible for this program? Whose dollars are contributing to what areas? As you may know, Right Track traditionally has eligibility guidelines that a young person has to have a barrier to employment and live within city limits. This allows us to expand our reach and it has excellent alignment with a lot of our program goals. We also utilize our systems in place, including our Right Track applications for young people to apply through, as well as our employer partners to apply through. Just again, allowing for a lot more consistency and streamlining that process. Often we work with the exact same people in different instances. We have the same champions. So this is also removing a lot of the burden from our employer partners who are feeling like they're navigating competing priorities or have to pick between options. So we've really appreciated that process. And Right Track also oversees the payroll process, although we encourage employer paid experiences. So whoever is able to pay for their internships, we appreciate that. And hopefully we can get more partners to be able to invest in our internship experiences. For our partners who are coming to the table who aren't able to pay the wages, we're able to blend our dollars and figure out how to most effectively move forward. We also provide job coaching and mentorship to young people and provide consistent site visits. In regards to how this partnership has strengthened our general employment efforts with the city of St. Paul, it's really expanded our reach. This work clearly aligns with our vision and our values year after year. So traditionally, the most significant part of our program, or the biggest part of our program, not significant, takes place in the summer. Every summer, young people are telling us when they leave our internships, they're looking for work. We can't just say summer youth employment is enough. We need to think more creatively, find additional experiences to extend those. Last summer, 76% of our young folks told us we're either hoping Right Track will hire us for something, connecting with the employer partners to see if we can find something there, or finding a job somewhere else. Overall, it continues to strengthen our connections with young people, educators, and employers. Our team also has had so much access to St. Paul Public Schools, whether it's recruiting at lunches, attending events, presenting in classrooms, having videos played in advisories. Our teams truly do feel blended at times, and I know Ling mentioned working together, officing together, and often we are in each other's spaces, which is great. And again, those consistent meetings, etc., have is something that we want to continue to evolve. And again, our employers have circled back to us and shared that this process feels easier to navigate for them. They're already navigating pretty large workloads, so that has been a benefit to us in regards to maintaining our employer connections. But this partnership goes beyond employer and youth recruitment and engagement efforts. And was it Keith who touched on credit recovery opportunities? We have been working with St. Paul Public Schools to offer credit recovery. So young people who engage in a summer internship with us and have attempted and have not passed English 9 through 12 or social studies 9 to 12 can actually recover those credits through completing their internship experience with us. And this is something I can't speak enough about. And I want to thank Bree and Shayna and the attorneys for laying the foundation.
Shout out to the attorneys.
Laying that foundation for a real solid data sharing agreement that we've been able to build upon year after year. This allows us to really engage in this low barrier initiative. So the way it works is once young people are matched with an internship, we send all of the applicants who are matched and SPPS students to the Department of Alternative Education. They go through all of those young people. If anybody's missing an English or social studies course, they're automatically enrolled. All they need to do is log into their Schoology. They get the support of a teacher from St. Paul Public Schools, their job coaches, their supervisors. So it's additional adults supporting young folks into attaining those credits. And it's fewer young people who then have to make that tough decision of, do I have to go to summer school or do I need to earn money to sustain my life, right? So that's something that we are extremely proud of, and just another example of how our partnership has continued to evolve over the years.
Awesome, thank you. Before we move on from the spring internship program specifically, I did just want to ask Hannah, we've talked a little bit about the spring internship program, and you mentioned how important it is to pay students. How many students are going through the spring internship program? How much are they getting paid, and what is the total cost for the collective partnership here to pay students?
Sure, I can probably tell you more about the wages, not the staffing costs. But so we have about 250 students that go through. And last year we paid about $150,000 in wages to students. And I think it's limited by what our grants are. So if we had more grant dollars, we could probably provide more internships for students.
How much is how are they getting paid an hour? What does that break down for the student?
So with YJ1, YJ2, if they're a YJ1 student, that means they probably don't have a lot of work experience yet. So they start at $13.50 an hour. And if they have more experience, they can start at $16 an hour. And then we do have some employers that pay the students as well.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Catrice, I didn't forget about you, I promise. I'm just curious, the work that is happening in Ramsey County, St. Paul Public Schools with the city of St. Paul, how does this work fold into the broader strategies of Ramsey County and the youth work that is happening? I know you all have partnered with Right Track to expand Right Track to be eligible to all students in Ramsey County and not just St. Paul. So I'm curious, how does this all tie together for your strategies?
Yeah, hello. Thank you. I think it's really important to highlight that the needs of young people on their career pathways goes far above and beyond the education and employment opportunities that they have access to. So when we think about how St. Paul Public Schools and Ramsey County and our other education providers come together, we also want to think about creating barrier-free pathways and barrier-free career pathways, and really thinking about how we can respond to the various challenges that might arise for young people as they're going through any education and training program within the workforce ecosystem. And the way in which Ramsey County has really kind of partnered with the spring internship program is really centered around making sure there are those job ready supports available, helping to ensure that students, for example, who are participating in the EMT program have uniforms, and that there are the tools and supplies needed to go through a construction and trades training pathway. And ensuring that young people, I think when you think about the funding and the complexities of the workforce ecosystem, we don't ever want young people to feel that. We don't need them to know that they're a WIOA participant, or that they're receiving funds through Minnesota youth programs or one of the state's grant programs that helps to fund the broader work that we do, but that there is this seamless, holistic, person-centered response where we are centering around the youth and being able to provide those additional services. And I know having Ramsey County staff working alongside the school staff as well as Right Track, having those continued collaboration meetings and being able to connect and help young people kind of find their people on their pathway by way of our partnerships is really central to that relationship as well.
Awesome. Before we move on, I just wanted to really quick, since you mentioned the additional services, that's such an important aspect. It's a key insight in the report on how important it is for youth career pathways. I did want to just have you touch a little bit on the driver's license academy work that y'all do. I saw Christy in the room. Shout out to Christy. Yeah, could you talk a little bit about that and kind of the work that's going into that and why that's so important?
Yeah. So driver's license is a significant need for a lot of individuals, not just youth, but adult job seekers to be able to get to their work sites. And so as we kind of address some of these barriers, particularly around transportation, it was really central for Ramsey County to be able to respond to that in a really meaningful way. And so the development of the Driver's License Academy allowed for individuals 18 to 24 who had that need to go and get their driver's education and or get additional resources to support them with any fines and fees, and having access to that to help reduce that transportation barrier was really central. I know there's been a lot of success with that program, and we are looking at that being kind of a regional approach as well, and bringing in other community partners to ensure that the Driver's License Academy can continue and that we're able to identify the driver's license as a work credential as well. So there's continued collaboration and building that's happening in relationship to that programming as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Catrice. Want to go to Bree. We've talked a ton about y'all's partnership together. I'm curious, who are some of your other partners in the career pathways work, and why are these partnerships so critical to the success of these pathways?
Yeah, thank you. So in addition to the wonderful members that were on the panel and the panel prior, we also partner with amazing organizations like 3M. I know Karita mentioned them, Minnesota Department of Education, United Way. I saw Liz here, Min State and St. Paul College, the Chamber and Blaze Credit Union, among many, many others. We have, just in the Career Pathways program alone, I think we have nearly 100 partners, if not more, that we work with. Most of our programs actually take multiple partners to run a program. And so for our internship, for example, the city is our primary partner, but we also rely on nonprofits and corporate partners and organizations to be the mentor to young folks and to be supervisors and to, in some cases, pay the young folks. So we work as a community for the SPPS students, and not everyone has to do everything. So we each take our own piece, what we are experts in, and then we sort of build programming around that. So I want to talk about one partner specifically, which is Blaze Credit Union. So Blaze Credit Union is an internship partner. They're also in 4 of our high schools. And one of the things that is really interesting about Blaze is that they also provide young folks with accounts, so credit union accounts. And so for some of our folks in the spring internship program, this is their first job, so they don't have an account. So Blaze sort of walks alongside the young person, Right Track, SPPS, to sort of set the student up once they start getting paid. And so that's a really critical piece. And they also contribute to the financial literacy that's happening in our schools. So Blaze is sort of a critical partner, an additional partner that makes all of this happen for young folks.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Nardos, I think I'm going to go to you. Sorry. In addition to strong partnerships and collaborations, what are some additional elements that are necessary for strong youth career pathways?
Yeah, we briefly mentioned the importance of job coaching supports, mentorships, having an adult that a young person can trust and rely on. I know we can all speak to the power of a strong network, but a couple of other ones I quickly want to point out, because I can see we're running out of time, is professional development. And not just professional development for that young person. I see too often the conversation in youth workforce development is preparing that young person to fit a very specific mold. We need additional professional development experiences for our employer partners, engaging and encouraging our employer partners to welcome in that innovation, the energy, the creativity that young person brings into a space. As well as, challenging some of those dominant workforce norms or dynamics that are in place that really do need to shift, right? And then if I had to pick one more quickly is pay young people. Right Track does not do any trainings. We don't do any internship experiences that are unpaid. I'm assuming most of us in this space today are being paid for our time. We should treat our young people's time the same. Last year alone, 87% of our young people reported that their source of income was a crucial source of income for their families. And I think there's an assumption we need to challenge about youth employment that, it's just money for whatever, leisurely things. And it can be, right? That's their choice. But our young people really do depend on the money they earn from these experiences. So as much as possible, try to always pay a young person for their ideas, for their time, for their engagement.
Awesome. I'm going to talk to SG. If you can go to the question slide real quick. Just wanted to remind everybody to take a second and use the QR code, insert a question. And then as y'all are doing that, I have one last question. Sorry, Tom. I have one last question that I'm going to ask Catrice to wrap us up. So you previously worked at Brunswick, as I mentioned before, a collaboration between the City of Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center to address the regional talent and workforce needs focused on supporting and investing in young people. And now you're leading highly collaborative work in this space in Ramsey County. Why does collaboration across jurisdictions or sectors help strengthen youth career pathways and provide additional opportunities for youth?
Yeah, thank you for that. I love what Patrice said earlier, that learning doesn't stop at the river. I'm also a Minneapolis native, and having worked, in the Brooklands for the last 6 years, doing a lot of parallel work to what Ramsey County has built out in partnership with St. Paul Public Schools and our local workforce providers. I think it's really central when we think about the workforce development ecosystem that we don't forget about the connections that we have with our employers, our workforce development boards, workforce directors, and young people, job seekers, and the many grant programs that kind of weave all of this work together. And there is kind of a metro approach to how we work collaboratively, but regionally, we're all working together to achieve workforce outcomes for residents of Minnesota. And so having a very robust workforce development ecosystem that is central to the success of our partners partners and our broader networks is really going to help to advance a lot of the work that we're doing now. I appreciated also hearing, a lot of this work came out of the 2.0 when we were in a season of abundance in the workforce development area. And now we are shifting. That season of abundance has come to a close, and it's going to be really central for us to continue to break down silos and to work collaboratively to weave funding sources together to be able to respond to the continuous needs and holistic supports that all job seekers need across the state, and particularly within the metro area when we think about our workforce development areas. I think working in the Brooklands also, I wasn't unfamiliar to the work that was happening in Ramsey County. I, in fact, as the workforce development director out there, leveraged resources through Ramsey County to help build out our Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funds and programming, and to be able to launch career pathways programs. So that's a demonstration specifically when you think about the connectedness and that connective tissue that was mentioned earlier across the workforce ecosystem, and how we truly can't do our work without each other.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Catrice. If everyone could give them a round of applause. Thank you so much for just sharing your wisdom, sharing your brilliance, and building that yellow brick road for our students. I really appreciate it. Why don't you all stay here, because we're going to transition to our question and answer portion. Karita, if you'd like to join your friends up here, why don't you come? Go. Yeah, y'all are matching. This is great. And then, do we have our tea? Oh, okay, nope, not. If we have our tea, we can go to him or get him around here somewhere, and then we'll go to the Q&A portion that Patrice is going to lead.
Hi, we just have some online questions, so I'll just start getting into them. For folks who have loved what they've heard and want to think about how they can do this where they are, as you created this ecosystem, especially in Ramsey County, St. Paul area, your personal opinion on, is this a matter of scaling up so that it's a state kind of thing, or is this a series of hubs perhaps at the county level across the state? We want young people in International Falls and Laverne and Minneapolis to potentially have something. If they loved what they've seen, what Ramsey County did, what would be your advice on how to shape, where the backbone, where that hub is? Anyone?
All right, that's the wrong person. I'm a go big or go home, scale up. I think that all of the state of Minnesota deserves an opportunity like this, and it takes all of us to work together. So it takes our legislature, it takes employers, it takes all of us to work together. I do think that our partnership is so close, though, that there needs to be some intentionality of this regional area. So maybe it is hubs, but the regional area works together to provide these services for our students.
For a school district or a school interested in either curriculum at the school level or trying to build this, what is literally step one? What is literally what is the step in this process as you brought this band together that you may not think about if you're kind of on the outside looking in right now trying to build that?
Honestly, when I think about your question, we're talking about spring internships in our programs now, but prior to this, I actually worked on a different grant, and we started in one building. We started in one school, and we were able to build our connections and build some of that work and then bring it district-wide. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I think you can start smaller, and we kind of ironed out the kinks. We ironed out like any issues that we had, we kind of figured it out. So then we brought it district-wide, if that's helpful.
On the curriculum side, how are you thinking as you get young people into job placements, when we think about the jobs of the future, when we think about AI, when we think about the jobs that we don't know what will exist? Folks today will have jobs that aren't even invented now. How are you thinking about that when you literally put together the programming and you do these placements?
I think some of that does come naturally when you have partners that are doing the work. So one of the things that we talk about in general in our career pathways is we want our students to train on what is being used in industry, right? That's a big part of career and technical education. And one of the ways that we did that, being mindful of resources and being responsible in using those resources, is to partner with some of our colleges, right? So I'll shout out St. Paul College. I'll shout out St. Kate's. Our students that are in our certified nursing assistant program, they train at St. Kate's. It's a state-of-the-art lab. And so we want them to have the sort of the highest end. And for a school district that has limited resources, such as I'm sure the colleges and universities do the same, but we take it. I don't want to say we take advantage, but we do take advantage of their resources, their labs, their equipment in order for our students to have the most state-of-the-art experience. And I think that the same can be said for our internship program. When we ask for mentors, our students are doing internships that are real time. It's happening, and so I think a lot of that conversation is happening in their day-to-day internship.
Tom, I got a question. Sorry, got a question over here. This is for anybody. Maybe we can start with Bree and then we go to anybody else. What has made the collaboration between St. Paul Public Schools, the City of St. Paul, and Ramsey County so successful? And how do you make this collaboration work and maintain your momentum? And also, if anyone else, I have a mic, so if anyone has just a question in the room, I can run the mic to you. So go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's. Oh, sorry, real loud. I'm really excited about this question. I think one of the things that I think was really helpful for us is that we actually had leadership buy-in. So thinking about Krita, thinking about Lang, thinking about Dr. Peasley, we had leadership saying, really bought into the collaboration versus competition narrative. So I think that that's one of the first things that was really important. And I think the other thing is that what the Youth Systems Build grant allowed us to do is to have those weekly connections and build that relationship. And I think that once we started really digging into the work, we really were able to see sort of what it was duplicative, what were we spending resources on, and we were then able to sort of streamline and work together on events and programs, and it sort of started to build sort of that ecosystem that was talked about in the first panel. And I think that our goal and our motivation never has changed. Our goal and motivation is always the youth and work readiness and the young folks within the St. Paul Public Schools, St. Paul, and the greater Ramsey County community. And when you have that as your sort of long-standing goal, the momentum is easy, right? Because you're constantly seeing young folks going into internship and coming out with confidence or coming out being an employee of that internship partner. And so I think that if your mission and goal is really youth-centered and youth-focused, I think that momentum is continuing to grow. And I think that we've really grown in sort of relationship with one another, and we really genuinely like working together as a team. So I think that's the other piece, is like liking who you see and talk to every day is really important. And I think that that's a big piece of why I think we've been successful as a group.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Bree. I think centering young people and youth voice as our foundation for everything we do. But the other piece is trust. We don't always agree, but we're comfortable and feel safe to bring concerns or disagree and have those honest conversations and to get to a point of resolve and uphold program integrity. We're really different agencies, but we do have some aligning goals. So I think that foundation of trust has allowed us to make a lot of progress.
If I could just add too, as the newbie kind of jumping in here, I will tell you that the special sauce is the relationships of the folks who are helping to lead this work. That Christy Longkey alongside Nardos and our St. Paul Public Schools partners, the depth of relationship that our staff have with each other and the intentional space and commitment and time that they have invested into growing this opportunity for young people with shared vision and willingness to go through conflict and, reach resolve and have solutions to respond to the employment needs of our young people is really central. The earlier question around where do you first start? It's there. Building the relationships with your partners and having that trusting space to collaborate.
Final question here from the audience as we come to an end here. How do you balance supporting students who want to do career pathways but also want to keep college as an option as well? How does that mix into all of it?
I don't think it's either or. I think that when students go through the experiences, they can decide what is good for them. And I think a lot of times we have students explore something and they may not like it at all, and that's okay. That's fine. Then you know that's not something you want to do. And I think what happens post high school is really what they decide they want to do with their career. So I don't think it's either or. I think it really depends on what the student wants to do.
Thank you. That was great. And if you didn't notice, I'm not a white guy in a blue suit, so I want to thank my colleague Tom for leading the Q&A. Tom, you want to wave to everybody in the room so they know who you are? This is our colleague Tom Weber from the president's office at the Minneapolis Foundation. I want to wrap us up with just a few final thoughts. The panelists today did a really great job of bringing us into this issue. And I want to highlight a few things that we heard today. I believe it was Karita who talked about the big blur and adults working across various lines. And then I also believe it was Catrice who mentioned the need to weave together various partnerships and streams of funding. So we at the Minneapolis Foundation, a few years ago, roughly 5-6 years ago, adopted our strategic framework. It called on us to get closer to issues, to listen to the folks who work with our young people in our school system and in other adjacent systems, to learn about the challenges they were facing, and then to use our levers to help contribute to young people and the quality of their life experiences. So with this report that you have, the executive summary for on your table, there are three of those levers. We have 4 at the foundation. The other one is research, which is represented by us doing the report. But we have 3 levers represented that as a foundation that you can expect from the Minneapolis Foundation over the coming months that will work on these issues across those 3 levers. The first lever is grant making. We heard quite a bit today about the pathway programs and the need to pay young people, but we also heard about some of those services that we may not think about, like the cost of a driver's license, the cost of a uniform. And we think that's a place where those of us who work in philanthropy, traditional institutions, and also folks who are generous philanthropically at the individual level, we're going to call on you over the coming year to think about those opportunities to provide support for the support services that help programs like this work. One of our other levers is policy. In the policy space, we as adults have to think about the restrictions that we sometimes place on systems and how policy needs to move to make the work across systems more flexible. One of those restrictions is seat time and what is required for our young people. And also you heard from Keith earlier about the need for credit and credit recovery. Finally, our third lever at the Minneapolis Foundation that we're focused on is our convening lever. You heard from B. Kyle from the first panel about the need to engage employers in this space. And we think convening is a key lever to do some of that over the coming years. So I wanted to highlight that. Again, thank you all for being here today. This work wouldn't have been possible without the people who we work with on the report. You'll see in the full report that we had public sector partners, nonprofit partners, and then also other funders. Primary amongst those funders is the Greater Twin Cities United Way. I want to give props to, is there anybody from the United Way here? Awesome, thank you. I want to give props to the United Way for recognizing the need to work with school systems and other partners to do this work, I believe over a decade ago. And so we stand on their shoulders and we appreciate the work that they've done. And we also will continue to seek their counsel and support and partnership at the Minneapolis Foundation as we develop our career pathway strategies. So, you know, I'm not going to just let you walk out of here with some homework on your part. So, Sarah, if you would, let's go to the next step slide. So, one, you have a great executive summary in front of you. Read that, but I hope you'll also read the full report. It's not that long. You can do it. So I hope you'll read the full report and think about the ways in which you can support these programs from whatever position you're in. Another next step that I'd like to put in front of you is for you to stay tuned for the Minneapolis Foundation and our emerging strategy in this issue. Again, we'll be calling on you all to help us with that, and then also to potentially be part of that effort. Last but not least, for our community of generous fund holders, this is a space that I want to encourage you to explore if you haven't already. Following this event, we will be releasing a video series that includes the St. Paul program. You saw that video, so we'll get that out publicly if you want to share it with other folks. But we'll also highlight the programs listed in your executive summary, and we have great videos about those programs. So these are the next steps I want to leave you with. I can't thank you all enough for being here today and for your interest in how we can support our young people and to make sure that Minnesota's economy and our young people are positioned to thrive. So thank you all for being here today and looking forward to seeing you at future Minneapolis Foundation events.